And good morning. Thank you for the 325 that are joining us today as we look at some very recent changes in extending coverage and flexibility around meal waivers. I'm Tasha Davenport. I'm CEO of CASBO, and I'm really happy today to be joined by our members and subject matter experts, Stephanie Bruce and Andrew Soliz, who are coming out of the Palm Springs USD for Stephanie. And Andrew is sharing his time as a director of nutrition services for San Mateo-Foster City. So thank you two for joining us as special guests. And of course, we have our talented Sarah Bachez, who's our Chief Governmental Relations Officer, facilitating the conversation today. Before we jump in, just a couple of reminders for those who have been with us through the entire summer. We have the presentation posted in your Q&A. We have recorded the session, and Sarah continues to add resources at the end of all of these that you can see growing in terms of a resource library. So thanks for doing that. We've got a couple of really great sessions coming up as well. We've got an HR related session in about 2 weeks. Next week is charter reform. And we've also been asked consistently to bring in something around social emotional learning. So some great topics coming down the pike for us as we continue to extend our summer speakers series. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to begin this great session. Thanks again for joining us.
Good morning. Today's agenda will feature the latest USDA, that's the U.S. Department of Agriculture changes and their waiver extensions, the state budget update. There was an additional infusion of funding for child nutrition purposes. 5 things to consider in the child nutrition world as your LEAs begin the process of reopening or doing hybrid models, and then federal advocacy that needs to continue to be considered in the next round of stimulus package discussions. With that, I'm now going to turn it over to Stephanie and Andrew.
Good morning, everyone. So as many of you know, on August 31st, USDA instituted a brand new waiver allowing us to continue using the summer food service program. The difference in this waiver is that it allowed us to use this program while students were in distance learning. Prior to that, the previous waivers that we were using over the summer and during the school closures only allowed us to serve while a school was in an unanticipated closure. And so as schools went back in early August, like Palm Springs did, we had to switch back to National School Lunch Program, which meant that we could now, instead of serving the community under our Seamless Summer or Summer Food Service program, we now had to account for the students that we were serving and could only serve enrolled students. So that was met with a lot of panic on how to do that because we were still going to be doing curbside. We still received the waiver to do the non-congregate feeding, which was great. The meal pattern waiver, all of that was great. But now we had to find a way to account for the students that we were serving. So like in my district, I spent $65,000 on technology and equipment so that we were able to do that curbside. And then on August 31st, the new waiver came out, and the change in that new waiver was that you could now use these summer programs, whether the school was in session or not in session, whether you were learning virtually or in class. And that really alleviated the need to have to account for every meal served to each student. And we could open back up to the community as well. We're grateful for it. We need it. It is an easier meal pattern if you're on the summer food service program, which means it can be a little lower cost. But the other waivers, parent pickup, non-congregate feeding, waiver of the time period, you can serve at any time. You can serve 5 days a week, 1 day, 2 times a week. This really helped alleviate a lot of red tape and concern for many of us. There was a little confusion when this first came out because when the federal government provides us guidance or rules, it's up to the 50 states to just define it for them. And the state of California, in the beginning, said this waiver does not allow for suppers. It did not allow for the at-risk portion. It did not allow for weekend meals, which many of us were doing. So some of you probably had a really difficult conversation with your food service director, letting them know, hey, all those weekend meals and summer meals that we did all month of August, we may not get reimbursed for. But it was really, truly just an USDA. They just left out one portion in the guidance, which has since been corrected. And weekend meals are allowable on the summer programs, as are the supper program, as long as you offer some sort of after-school enrichment, be it online or in some form that you're providing in those meals.
So I think additionally what I wanted to add is just as we look at transitioning back to our summer meal programs, is that it's the same program that we were operating, that we have been operating since March. So it's just kind of that brief interruption if you had already started school to now transitioning back to what we've been doing since March. For us, we've been what they call stacking meals, as to where we're providing you lunch today and breakfast tomorrow. So that is an option to where, as we operate our summer meal programs now, that we're providing those two meals and kind of serving dual purposes of ensuring that our community now continues to receive the nutritious food, but also that we're ensuring the integrity of our resources and our revenue streams, in that for summer meal program, we're receiving, if we're giving a stacking meals, breakfast and lunch, we're receiving almost, $6, $6.35, depending on where you qualify for those free meals. So that's serving kind of our dual purposes there. So as we look at the meal waiver, or the meal pattern waiver, remember that requires you to receive state approval. It's not a blanket waiver across. It's each LEA, School Food Service Authority, that needs to receive that waiver and demonstrate why they wouldn't be able to meet some of the meal pattern requirements. So as we think of looking at really pivoting and shifting of being able to serve just our enrolled students, to now going back to our community feeding and providing anyone 18 years and younger meals for the school day. And again, that really ensures the integrity of our program, and making sure that we have a revenue stream coming in, and being able to meet our fixed costs and some of those additional costs. With that stacking of meals, with providing multiple days of service, depending on how you do it, ensure that your meal counting and claiming procedures are updated and reflect the type of service that you are providing, and that you're ensuring then the real integrity of, are you ensuring that those meals are going to 18 years and younger? The questions that I ask are, how many meals do you need for those in your household that are 18 years and younger? Have you picked up meals at any other additional sites today or during the week? Kind of some of those questions to make people think that, oh, did I not? Oh, you can't receive an additional meal. So.
Thank you. And then on the state side, we're still awaiting Governor Newsom to sign SB 820, which is the education trailer bill that updates various components from SB 98. And in SB 820, it provides an additional $80 million for a total of $192 million of a combination of federal and state general fund dollars to reimburse local educational agencies for meals provided under the USDA standards. And they're based on the following requirements: that it's for programs that had continued to serve meals from March through August of 2020 during the school closures due to COVID-19, that they're based on meals served for breakfast and lunch at a rate not to exceed an additional 75 cents per meal, And it has a qualifier that if there are other funds, federal funds that are made available, then CDE will allocate $112.2 million of these funds based on a formula that's, and everything that's underlined is a hyperlink that you could then pull up and see what those changes are. And those are the changes in SB 98. It's a formula on how then to redistribute these funds if there are other funds made available for these purposes. And when we asked CDE for clarification on the instructions for the reimbursement process, they mentioned that there is 2 COVID-19 related disaster funding opportunities that LEAs can apply for. For the reimbursement that is to not exceed 75 cents per eligible breakfast and lunch served after COVID-19 anticipated closures, beginning in March through August, there is no application process except for the March meal claims. CDE needs to determine the meal programs that were operated in March, and so LEAs need to complete an online informational tool for that March meal data only, and that information was due to CDE by September 11th. That online informational tool is there underlined. You could click on it, and it will pop up the information of what CDE needs submitted. And then the second application process is for this Proposition 98 disaster claim that schools can consider to offset any of their fixed costs. And it involves 2 applications because COVID-19, the school closure spans 2 fiscal years in 2019-20 and 2021. And so the March through June disaster claim data is due to CDE by September 30th of this year. And then the second phase for the July through August claims, information will be announced shortly. I've also listed the hyperlink to the CDE reimbursement website as well as the email address to the CDE contact in order if you have any questions. I know that this is an area, and I'll just ask Stephanie and Andrew if you have any further, as we were discussing a few days ago, what did this mean? What still needs clarification? That there's still some areas that we recognize in this area that might still need clarity. And that this is an opportunity for us to engage and get that information. I'll turn it to Stephanie because she had made a really, I think, a thoughtful approach of just make sure you apply.
Yeah, I mean, whether you know you're going to qualify for the money or not, you need to apply because you may. Andrew and I both think that the way they're going to do this is they're going to take a look at the reimbursements as a whole and match them to what we had done prior to, and that's going to determine whether or not you're going to get the 75 cents. The other, we're not quite sure. And Andrew, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't really understand what the second one of the Prop 98, what criteria they're using on that, or how they're going to determine how they're going to disperse the money.
Yeah, for the 75 cents, that's the automatic that if you've served the meals, you'll get that reimbursement up to 75 cents, and CDE will do those calculations of how many meals were served, how much funds do they have to provide that. They have up to 75 cents to give, so that'll come out. The Prop 98 disaster relief, my reading of it is that they will take our claim from the month prior to closure, so which would be February, that they will look at what was that possibly average daily or average month that you should receive. How much revenue did you receive if you were operating in some form for March, April, May, June, so on, and then kind of make up that difference, backfill to make you whole to February. That's my reading of it.
And so if there's any further questions on this, and we know that this is an ongoing issue, and because the governor has not yet signed the bill, I know that CDE is waiting before they begin the process of releasing FAQs on this. But if there's any further questions, this is something that we're more than happy to continue working on. And then moving forward, this is the exciting part where I asked both Stephanie and Andrew, what are 5 things to consider, especially for those LEAs and directors who are seeing that their counties are coming off of the monitoring list, things to consider if we're going to move in the direction of hybrid instruction and in-person learning once more?
I think for me, as we look to bringing students back, and we have brought some students back under the child care auspices, and so we're really looking at that path of travel. What is the physical distancing that we can still continue to maintain if students are coming to pick up meals? What is the quick and easy way that they can come in, maintain their social distancing within their bubble, or if there's other groups around, and really just that quick pickup and get back to whether they're eating wherever their designated eating area is, whether it's a classroom, outside tables in the MPRs, multipurpose rooms, cafeterias, and then really looking at how do we quickly continue to maintain service of, again, do we stack meals? Do we give them a breakfast or a lunch for today, a breakfast for tomorrow? Depending on what our schedules are, our instructional time, is outlined in the 4 hours, but what does that schedule look like during the day if kids are on campus all day long, or do they go home? So kind of determining what is that. If you let us know what it is, we tend to say then we'll make that accommodation and meet those expectations. So that's kind of what I have.
Yeah, so to kind of continue on what Andrew's saying, I'm quickly learning that there's no boilerplate for how this is going to happen. I would encourage you to encourage your food service director to go out and meet with each individual principal on each individual site. We're currently out measuring the MPRs, trying to see how many kids we can actually fit in a multipurpose room during meal service. And it's about 45 in our district, depending on the size of the multipurpose room, where they're going to eat, how much time you're actually going to have. It's really going to be dependent upon the schedule that they determine. And that a lot of that is going to have to be negotiated in an MOU or a renegotiation of a contract with teachers as well, because things are changing. We cannot continue to operate like we have in the past. Nothing is normal anymore. And we're all going to have to give a little bit in order to do what's best for students. If you came up with a plan like I did back in June for, in-class instruction, that has completely changed within the last couple of weeks as I go out and talk to principals. You need to be very conscious of their anxiety level. We in nutrition, we've been doing this since March 13th, have not gone home. We're here every day. And so our anxiety level and ability to handle dealing with people in close proximity is far lower than the principals who now have to deal with the students, teachers on campus, parents coming and going off campus. How are they going to handle that? And we are looking at doing grab and go meals. And we were thinking, people just come on, we'll give you a grab and go box meal. You can go to a classroom, you can go anywhere you want to eat. Until I started talking to principals, and they are so concerned about how they're going to deal with drop off, and they've got parents and students mingling about. And if I'm standing there with my staff passing out meals, we're adding to the problem. So as Andrew talked about earlier, stacking meals, well, now we're probably going to just hand them a breakfast as they leave that they can eat the next morning before they come to class. We're still looking at how we're going to be serving the kids. It's probably going to be in a much longer meal service. We might be starting to serve lunch at 9 a.m. and we're probably still going to be serving lunch at 1 or 1:30 p.m. just to be able to have enough room for all of those students and provide them time to eat. And the social distancing portion during lunch is incredibly important because that's where everybody's going to have their masks off. And if there's going to be an exposure, that's your highest risk. So everybody needs to be involved in that decision process. And menu is another thing you've got to consider. We love options, but we can't do any options during this process because we have to be able to get those kids through as quickly as possible and allow them time to eat and then back into class in order to continue their day.
Yeah. You were talking about options, and that made me think, during the school year, we offered at the elementary level 4 entree choices. At the middle school level, it was 7 to 8 different entree choices. Now we've decided, it's one.
Yep.
You know, and that's for both breakfast and lunch. Here's your entree for the day, and that's what it is. So planning those menus out, and that helps with your inventory control as well. You know, you know what you're going to menu, you know that how many you're going to serve, and you can work with your distributors and manufacturers to forecast and plan and place hard orders for your products, which makes that supply chain even a better flow if we can do that. Additionally, I wanted to add for meal service distribution and delivery is that looking at ways of, do we need to deliver to classrooms? Does the child nutrition team need to make deliveries to classrooms? Do teachers and staff then maybe need to come and pick up meals to take to the students that have it? So it's going to be a different approach than the traditional students come to us. How do we go to the student to help maintain that social distancing type of information or separation?
Yeah, it's important for us to really stay open, have an open mind, and be able to collaborate with all of the different scenarios. Especially you get to a high school, a secondary level, and the schedules they're difficult. I mean, just having to figure out how you're going to get all those instructional minutes in for those students on a hybrid model who may not be there all day. They might be there a half day. And how are you going to keep high school kids socially distant? You're not. So we're really looking at ways to, you know, at the end of their day, are we going to end it at 11 o'clock or at noon? Great. Let's just, you know, do a staggered dismissal, walk them through the cafeteria, and we're only going to give them two choices. If you want pizza, you're going to get in the 4 pizza lines over here. If you want a burrito, you're going to get in the 4 burrito lines over here, and you're going to grab that meal and you're going to walk off campus and eat it wherever you want. That's an option. Originally, we thought we were going to serve the kids, but you know, in order to help keep that anxiety level low and to do what's right for students, we just have to learn different ways how we're going to do that. It's not going to be a one size fits all. What works at one of my high schools may not work at another high school. So it's a lot of work and a lot of face to face, not in a Zoom. I'm out there on the campuses with them, and I've got a team with me so that we can measure, help them understand this is the vision. What does it work for you? Does this work? How do you want us to do it? We adapt. Nutrition services, we're chaos agents. We manage chaos on a daily basis. We know how to handle change. And our role should be, here's our rules. How can we make this work? And, you know, I'm taking advantage of the waivers. If I can let kids take a meal and go, I'm going to let kids take a meal and go, because that will help reduce the interaction and increase the social distancing, and it will help reduce the anxiety level of the principals.
Great. I think those were all really thoughtful things to consider. And then moving us along, what can we still engage as part of the federal advocacy process?
So much. Food's important. Nutrition is important. And I will always say forever and forever, a hungry child just can't learn. They can't. And as much as we think that we don't have a hunger problem in this country, we absolutely do. And I invite anyone to come out to the Palm Springs area. I know people think it's an affluent area, but we are 90% free and reduced. And I have students that show up on Monday. It's important to ensure we expand access to these programs and make sure that our children are getting the nourishment they need. We often get a bad rap that our food is horrible, but I'm going to tell you, probably the most nutritious meal many of these kids will see. And up until COVID, we were doing produce bars, and we have a central kitchen. We actually cook from scratch. So we do a pretty good program, as well as most people across the state. I've yet to see a nutrition program that doesn't offer a beautiful meal for students. So improving that access and, you know, advocating for that is going to forever be important. Preserving these flexibilities that we have right now. COVID's not going to go away on December 31st. It's not going to go away on June 30th. So we need to do what we can to help educate our legislature on what's needed to preserve some of these flexibilities, to reduce the red tape. Andrew can probably agree with me that we hardly get to a site anymore because 90% of our day is spent reading rules, regulations, filling out forms, making sure that we're checking boxes so that the auditors ensure that we know that we're doing exactly what we need to do. And these flexibilities have really helped with that. I'm out more now than I've ever been in the last probably 10 years. And extending these waivers to the end of the school year is really important. I'm sure all of you saw the anxiety in your food service director's eyes when they learned that you had to switch to national school lunch as soon as you started distance learning, and the complex issues that they had to deal with in order to make that happen, only for USDA to say, okay, we're going to extend it, which we appreciate, but it's really important that they extend that to the end of the year. And if any of you listen to the podcast that we did the other day, I will forever say that all children at school should have access to a free meal that is nutritionally adequate. And I think this whole pandemic has proved how important that is. And that's something we continue to lobby for on a federal level.
I think, Stephanie, you hit it right of that, meals are an important part of the educational program. And now that we've been we continue to be called to action. And for that, I say that our mission in child nutrition is always about serving education, and not only to ensure that our students have the nutritious support to their educational program, and that they have food that they will eat. It's a child nutrition program, so let's always remember that we need to find the most healthy, quality, nutritious meals available for our students that are out there. Who really wants to eat a whole grain, low fat, low sodium cheese pizza? It's not always the greatest to us, but that's exposing them to the great quality nutrition that is really out there. And the fresh fruit and vegetables that we have available has just expanded our program. It really has helped increase that and increase exposure to our students. So I really think of that call to action of us looking at how do we continue in serving education on a daily basis. As we look at pivoting continually to meet the demands and the needs, no longer just of our students, but of our community, youth, and kids. I think that's where we have really now become a community partnership with everybody else that is out there. And that's where these federal flexibilities will continue to help the community, continue to help our families support what they're doing within their own homes. So just kind of want to touch base on that. As far as simplifying the process, and we're looking at qualifying students more for free and reduced price meals. Although we've transitioned to a summer meal program, if you have transitioned, those applications are no longer needed. But as you know, right now, we're only allowed to operate summer meal programs until December 31st or when funds run out. And so we need to look to see, when that happens, what do we need to continue to do? We need to continue to advocate for our households and our families to complete those free and reduced meal applications so that when we do need to transition back to traditional national school lunch, school breakfast programs, you don't have an interruption of service and providing meals to students in need. And you continue to ensure that students have access to the free and reduced price meal programs and in an uninterrupted service. And as part of that, then you do get your LCFF calculations and counts regarding that. Remember that, and CDE will emphasize, you can't push free and reduced meal applications for the sole purposes of LCFF funding. If you're doing that, you would have to use the alternative income form for LCFF calculations. It just happens that as we collect free and reduced meal applications, it also helps. So remember that when you're asking families to fill out meal applications now, it's so that when we transition back to traditional National School Lunch, School Breakfast, we have those on file and nobody has to worry about that in January. So get focus on that now, and keep continuing to get families to get qualified for free reduced meal benefits.
And just remember, both, you can't require either form be completed.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So clearly, if people want to get involved, I think we have the beginnings of a good advocacy platform on this slide deck. So moving on, this is the part where we already have some questions coming on the queue. For those who have questions, feel free to raise your hand. There's a little feature, an icon feature, and Michelle will let us know, and we will open up the mic for you. And then for those who want to submit their questions, I'll go ahead and start reading them. So feel free to start sending us questions. The first one that came in is regarding what information should we request from the community when they pick up meals under the Seamless Summer Option Program?
For me, what I look at is what to ensure the integrity of the program, and that's kind of how CDE frames it, is that I'm looking at how many in your household are you picking up meals for that are 18 and younger. That's kind of that question of to frame that it's not for mom and dad, it's not for grandma, grandpa, anybody above 18. These are meals targeted for those that are 18 and younger. How many are you picking up? And this is just my thought. This is not a prescribed something from CDE or USDA. Have you picked up meals at any other sites today? Have you picked up, if you're doing a weekly meal service, have you picked up meals for the week already? Kind of some of those questions just to trigger some thoughts of process that, oh yeah, I have. And then you kind of know, oh, well, you can't you already got them. So that's that's my frame.
CDE just wants to make sure that you are doing best to only under the age of 18 and under, and that you're not double serving. There's no way to prove that. They just want to see that you have a process. And if they were ever to come out for an audit, they're going to ask those questions of staff and they want to hear the right answers. You could go as far as having them fill out a form. I know Fontana Unified used this great form where they're asking for the ages of the students in the household. And they take that form. And if it says you've got a 22-year-old, we're really sorry, we can't serve the 22-year-old, but we can give you the meals for all the other kids. And they're using that as their backup. You don't have to do it that way, but that's just an option.
Great. How do you identify the students for the summer meals, for the supper meals?
That'd be Stephanie. I don't operate supper.
And I see we're having a little technical difficulty on her side, so I'll give her a second to reply. And maybe I'll repeat the question and see if she could hear us. Stephanie, the question was, how do you identify the students for the supper, the dinner meals? And we'll see if we didn't lose her. So I'll send her a notice and see if she's okay, because I see her little icon. But I'll move on to the next question that was asked in terms of, Andrew, what form did you say was necessary for LCFF versus the lunch application during this time period?
It's an alternative income form that kind of gives ranges of income, not specific to them stating what income. So we can get you an example of what that looks like.
What we could do is we, as part of the webinar website on our CASBO page, will add the alternative income form and have both of those available. I think my follow-up question on that, because this has now become a issue here that advocates are finding out in terms of the LCFF, LCF, the hold harmless language in the state budget was only for the average daily attendance, the ADA count, not for the unduplicated count of students. So for districts that hover on the supplemental, have supplemental grants or concentration grants, they still need to keep their efforts in this fiscal year in order to maintain those numbers. So that's why it's important to continue to request families submit that application. Andrew, do you have any suggestions on how to encourage families in this time period, or how to redirect staff to continue to call families so that we can ensure that we're doing the best that we can in getting those applications returned to us?
For me, I'm working with the principals and then their community liaisons and their site staff that focus on outreach to parents and families, really letting them know to push the applications when they're registering families. Oh, by the way, also, here's the form. We've transitioned a lot of our registration packet all to online, and we knew that probably some parents would have issues with online, but we have had a very, very good response rate to our online services. In getting people to register and getting people to complete the online mail application. And then that additional outreach to families of, hey, have you turned in your mail application this year? Targeting groups of different families that we know of that might have qualified in the previous year but haven't qualified yet. Just reminding them that, hey, the mail application needs to be turned in each year. Have you done it? Not really identifying them, making sure you're not identifying them of, hey, you were free and reduced last year, you need to do it again, but just that reminder of, hey, each year you need to reapply. So it's just really working with the site leadership and their teams at the site that already have those daily contacts, already have contacts with the families within their school site. That's been the best outreach for us because they deal with them every day. If it comes from the district level, that's kind of a hard, because it's like the district, who are they? I don't have that relationship with the district as much as they do with the school sites.
And I see Stephanie has logged back on, so I'm hopeful that she will be able to hear us now.
Yep.
Perfect. Stephanie, a question that came up was in regards to how do you do the summer, and I keep saying summer, the supper meals? How do you identify students for the dinner portion?
Well, so according to CDE, as long as, because the summer program, the supper program, sorry, I'm doing the same thing. You can account for the children the same way that you do CEP or summer. There are different ways to account for them. You can either have them sign in, you can have them use an ID card, or you can count heads. If you're going to count heads, whichever way, you have to have your process set up and then sent to CDE in your application process, and they approve that for you. So I do have it approved that we just count heads in our supper program, because the supper program is a community program. Even though it's served on school campuses, it's after school. So we offer distance learning after school enrichment. So we do offer that to everyone, so we're able to serve supper to everyone, but we also provide in that supper bag activities for the students to do after school. As easy as like how to use a hula hoop, to how to do a somersault, how to we gave them nutrition education too, and we did a corn maze and showed them how to get through the maze with some information on corn. So there's all sorts of fun things you can do just to comply with the requirement. Hope that answered your question.
And can you clarify the requirements to offer breakfast and lunch for weekends under the Seamless Summer Option Program?
So what you need to do is in CNIPS, where all of our meal applications are for the programs that we use, you need to identify the 7 days a week for both breakfast and lunch, so that you can serve the meals on the weekends. If you don't do that, if you only have Monday through Friday selected, then only those are allowable to reimburse. But under both programs, weekends are allowed because it's a summer community program, and you can serve every single day of the week under those summer programs.
And that was just clarified in the recent Q&A from USDA that came out on, what day was that? Just recently.
This week.
Was it this
Wasn't
week?
it Monday?
It was Monday. Yeah.
I don't know. I got an email Friday telling me you're wrong, and then I got an email Monday saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're right."
Yeah, so it is outlined. I think it's question 6.
Yeah.
And again, just make sure that in your meal counting and claiming, you're outlining how you're tracking those and providing them.
We'll include that Monday guidance as part of our website. This is, again, it's like whack-a-mole. And I think
that's exactly what it is.
So another question that came on is, why do I hear some people say meals to 18 and under, and others have said allowable for 2 to 18, ages 2 to 18?
I think that's just over the years, the guidance has changed, but the guidance currently reads 0 to 18. But you can also serve your adult transitional program. So we include them in that count as well. So if they're still in school with us, we're still going to serve you regardless of whether it says 18 and under. But it's just that it's changed. It used to say 18 and under, then it said 2 to 18, and now it's 0 to 18. So I think it's just not updating whatever your guidance is in your district.
And this question came for CASBO, if we've collected any data on how the pandemic has affected meal program participation in the state. I'm observing that program participation has gone down even with seamless summer. Just curious. So that's a question that we're now undertaking. We'll be working with the Child Nutrition Directors Association to figure out a best method to develop a survey, because our concern is if we're seeing not only a participation decline, given that there is a requirement to prevent, stall any layoffs for child nutrition services, transportation services, and others. We want to know what the fiscal effect is. So we're going to begin engaging those conversations with other partners to see what's the best method, because we do want to have that information statewide. But if this is something your district is experiencing, Naomi, please let us know. Another question that came on is the income verification tool in a system like ARIES a sufficient equivalent for the alternative income verification form?
I'm sure it would be if it met all of the requirements that are required.
Yeah. If it has all the data you need, then it's fine.
So just making sure that they compare and see that whatever is being requested in that income verification form aligns to what they're receiving in their area system.
Yes.
Right. You have to make sure it has the ability to update the eligibility scales, because that's really what the alternative form goes by, and it changes every year. And that can be a lot of work. I know, because I just did a Google form with all of that in there.
Next question. We started using the Seamless Summer in March and switched to using Central Kitchen for their free programs in the summer. We recently switched back to using our kitchen. Would we need to reapply for the Seamless Summer option?
Yeah, you would have to go into CNEPS and update your application, your site applications for Seamless Summer.
Yeah, so in Seamless, remind me, Andrew, Seamless Summer goes with the same calendar as NSLP, correct?
No, because if you operate in July and you're off of school, so you would just have a Seamless Summer.
I mean the application.
Yeah, for the month of July.
Right.
How many days you're serving. Mm-hmm.
So I would update it through the end of the year, at least for now. And if you're
Seamless,
for Seamless
Summer follows the federal calendar year.
So October to September.
October through September, yes. And so you have to put in your seamless summer application through September on the 1920 application, and your October 1 on your 2021 application in CNOPS. So you have to, it crosses our fiscal year, it overlaps.
Yeah, and get it done before you file your claim, or you won't be able to file your claim.
Yes. You need that approval before you can claim. Yeah.
And then Mary has she's letting us know of her suggestion of what they're working on in their district. Their district is working on a flyer for families, letting them know of other benefits besides the meals that they can receive and the additional funding for their district for unduplicated students. So any chance in sharing that information, I think we're all seeking best practices, but I think that's a great way to notify your families that there's added benefits, that it's not just a one benefit item, that you get many other rewards from it. The next question is, are USDA foods being diverted to manufacturers to help process into individually wrapped items?
So on USDA foods, so remember USDA foods are ordered
Year in advance.
February. Those orders get turned in February. So we've already committed to USDA foods going to manufacturers, USDA foods dollars entitlement going to the pilot program, to the DoD produce program, and what's traditionally called brown box, USDA foods direct delivery items. So those have already kind of been orders placed. And then there's some items that come available to get ordered now. But as we look at the USDA foods program and what's at manufacturers, working with manufacturers, hey, traditionally you only made X with this product. Is there a way that you can start doing individually portioned products? So it's working with your manufacturers with the pounds that you have there, and what is the manufacturer's capability of doing those. In looking at some of the brown box items, what I have done is work with manufacturers. Hey, can you take the brown box items that I have and make them into an individual portion? Can you do something different with them to help us in our production and distribution of meals? So it's really working with the manufacturers and processors to get those items and start thinking differently of how we utilize USDA foods.
And I would encourage people to not switch to a lot of individually wrapped items, or to ask your manufacturers to change. Every time a product is changed, it costs the manufacturer $1 million plus. That cost goes right into the cost of that product, into your bottom line. And that packaging is very expensive. Plastics, cellophane, it's all in high demand right now. And we're already struggling with our participation. To want to require individually wrapped is just going to hurt your bottom line. So really think outside the box and find ways that you can utilize that bulk product. For us, we've done it all. We've done a weekly, we're going to cook and serve, or we've done a weekly pack or an everyday pack, and now we're doing a weekly, and we kind of operate like a food bank now. And I'll put a hamburger kit together, and I give them a pack of buns. I don't repack them. I'll take the hamburger patties and pack them into a bag, and then give them all the other condiments for the week in one package instead of each individually wrapped, to try and reduce the cost, reduce the packaging, make it easier to pack. And then we provide recipes and holding instructions for the families. So I'm doing everything I can to keep my costs down. But remember, everything you ask for, it's a domino effect, and the costs just keep going up.
Yeah, I think the important thing is remember that entitlement, although you think it's free money, that's really $1 associated that will come back to your bottom line.
Yep.
So make sure that you are using all your pounds that you sent to manufacturers as much as you can. We know there's a reduction in participation, so we can't use as many pounds that we have, but really maximizing that USDA foods all the time, not just in these times like this.
So the next question is, great info on the weekend service. Are those meals also stackable? available to be provided in advance, say on a Friday?
Yes.
It sure is. I provide 7 days worth of meals 1 day a week. So Wednesday, they get 7 breakfasts, 7 lunch. Right now, we're only doing a week's worth of suppers, 5 suppers, and 5 snacks. As we approach the holidays and I need my team to have a break, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I'm going to be serving 2 weeks worth of meals on Wednesday because the waiver allows it. It's the only way I'm going to give my team a break because they haven't had a break since March 13th.
The next one is, we're currently working on a plan to deliver meals to remote locations by school bus. Do we need to have a food service employee present at the bus stop serving locations?
I think for that, you need to make sure that who's ever delivering those meals, that they've been trained in how to track them. You typically would already have those meals packaged in one compartmentalized type of bag or something that, I give one bag to somebody, that's one set of meals. And so as long as they know how to track that, then I think then necessarily wouldn't have to be a school nutrition employee professional taking track. As long as that person that's there is trained in how to ensure that they're giving a full reimbursable meal and tracking it correctly.
Does anyone know how verification is going to work this year?
I'm going to say it's going to work the same way. There has not been an extension of the 30-day carryover. I haven't heard of any waivers of verification changes. So October 1st, verification's coming.
They can only verify what applications you have on file as of October 1st. So if it's 3% of whatever you have on file, this is going to be the easiest verification year ever. So don't sweat it.
Yeah. Just make sure you do it.
But do it, yeah.
Don't sweat it should have been our tagline here. So should we switch monies from processing into DoD produce?
So here's my take. Depending on your system and how you do your USDA foods, if you have already ordered truckloads to processors, or you've ordered brown box, or you haven't already set aside for pilot or DoD, those dollars have already been spent. So in some cases, you're not going to have any entitlement left to switch over to a processor. So there's several different formulas of how state operates USDA foods through state distribution, state warehouse, private co-ops. So it's going to depend on who you're with. I can give an example for me in looking at the super co-op and how we operate. We provide a dollar amount for processors, which is just an arbitrary number that's kind of your fair share of entitlement. But in all reality, that money is sitting in pounds at processors. So we need to ensure that we're using the pounds at our processors and not having these pounds sit and not get utilized onto the plates of our kids in California, our students in California. We need to utilize what's at processors with the money that you already have. So that's my take on that one.
So this is a question following up on what Stephanie was mentioning about 2 weeks of food. How will you be providing those meals?
We'll just, instead of getting one pack, so the way we have it set up, the frozen items for the week are in one bag, the dry items are in another bag, and then we provide them a box of fresh produce from our local farmers and a half gallon of milk. So instead of just doing that one pack in, they're going to do 2 packs instead. And we're going to let the families know well in advance so they know they're getting 2 weeks worth of meals, and hopefully they've got room in their storage for it. But we've done it before. This will be the second time we've done it since this whole pandemic happened.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
this may have already been addressed. Has CDE provided clear guidance on if meals served under the National School Lunch Program in August can now be claimed under SSO?
Yes, that was actually in that Q&A, and that was question 6. They did allow it to be retroactive to when, if you were claiming meal, had started school prior to August 31st and operate a National School Lunch, School Breakfast, you can go back and claim those under a summer meal program. You just need to reimburse or put back on account any funds that were provided. So if a student was a paid student and paid you, then you would need to return those funds to them. And return the funds to them, I'm saying it's on their account. You know, it's there for a future refund if they ever come and ask for it, or future use. So it's not like you're writing checks to everybody.
Do you have a special application to CDE to serve weekend meals? Is it still possible to apply for the 2020-21 year?
Yeah, it's in CNIPS. So you have to go into the CNIPS program, and if you're doing seamless or summer food service program, whichever one, you have to go into if you're doing it for 2020, 2021, then you go into that year's application, and in there it asks what meals you're going to serve. So if you're going to do breakfast, you'll click on the breakfast, you'll open the calendar, and in there it has boxes for Sunday through Saturday. You're going to click all 7 if you want to do weekend meals as well. And then you refresh the calendar, and it'll go for the dates that you set it. It'll show in the calendar, those are all the days that you can serve and reimburse meals. Same for lunch, same for snack, or any other meal program that you're going to serve under that program. And if you need help, you have a child nutrition consultant, they can help you. They're a little busy right now, but they will help.
Shout out to CDE staff working really hard because they also haven't stopped. We were told by our child nutrition auditor that if we give a loaf of bread for sandwich making, it will only be counted as 1 day's grain. How do you comply with the other days if you don't individually wrap to count for individual days?
I think we'd have to verify what the actual ask was and their interpretation of that, because I'm thinking if I put two pieces of bread that meet 2 whole grain rich requirements, 2 grain ounce equivalents, what's the difference in a large bulk bag versus I give it to you singly? So I think that would have to be probably some further clarification and discussion with your child nutrition consultant and what they're interpreting.
Mm-hmm. And I always have to remind people, the auditors, they're just that, they're auditors. They may have never been in any kind of food service environment or a child nutrition food service environment, and their role is to read regulation and ensure we're following it. So sometimes you have to ask a little more questions and expand the conversation and get a little more clarifications. I don't think that that's accurate. So Andrew's,
I would work with, and Nutrition Services State Director Kim Frenzel really pushes that our child nutrition consultants really are there to assist you and help, not act like an auditor and find something to ding you on, but they're really a resource to help you. So I would say reach back out with them and utilize them and work through the process with them.
And a lot of them are new, so you got to help them just like they help us.
Just like your regular physical auditors.
Yeah. Oh, don't get me started.
So one last question. I'm getting outside help from staff members from other departments. Now my district is saying that they're going to charge back my budget for those hours. Is this allowable, and have you heard of other food service departments having to pay back for those hours?
If you do a PARS, of course it's allowable. But they would have to document their time on a personnel activity report.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew and Stephanie. I think the hour went by really quickly, and what we will do is to this resource page, I will add all of the guidance that you mentioned, and we will provide that information to everyone. And should folks have any questions, you're always welcome to contact Tasha or myself. Our contact information's here. I'll turn it over to Tasha.
Hey, thanks. I learned so much on this session. I just have so much appreciation for the leadership that you have shown, completely uninterrupted during this period of time, the practical advice that you shared, just the important role that all of you have in serving the community, the families, obviously the students. I'm definitely interested in that hula hoop guidance that I think, Stephanie, you shared. I'd like to get back into that. But again, thank you. I learned so much, and just, again, that practical advice. I think there was a comment, nothing's free when we were talking about that packaging. So just really laid a groundwork for all of us to really consider what we're doing in this space. Just much appreciated. Carry on. Thanks so much. And we'll look forward to our next session next week. Have a great one.